Hello, Dame Kelly Holmes.
Hello again.
I know, again. I'm so happy to have you back on the podcast. So happy. And to do it face to face, because we were just talking about this before we started. There's nothing like having a face to face chat. It's the real deal.
It's so good. It's so good to see you, though.
It's so
you always
good
make
to
me
see
smile
you.
anyway when I see you. So
Well, you make me smile, and we've got obviously so much to catch up on and talk about since I last saw you in the flesh. We've spoke on the phone, but the last time I actually saw you, how are you feeling? It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks with you coming out publicly. How's your head? How's your heart?
wow, it's quite surreal. I feel like I've been in a little bit of a bubble. So I've done the sort of newspaper, TVs, and then my documentary come out. But essentially, outside of that, I've been at home. So it's a bit surreal. So it still feels like I'm processing because I don't know how I can suddenly feel different. I wondered what I would feel like after this all come out, and I just don't know how I suddenly have to feel different, or how do I suddenly take out all of those worries and inhibitions and fears and just walk out the door and go, I don't care. Some processing.
Yeah, I guess it's an incremental thing, and I think like with most terrifying moments, you expect that you're going to feel completely different after, but I guess there'll be all different phases depending on who you're with, what job you're doing, where you are, that you'll peel back more layers and just keep processing it. And I know an important part of that, watching your beautiful documentary that I just loved watching, you said right at the start you wanted to set yourself free. That was the whole point of making the documentary, of exploring some very difficult subjects. Do you feel any freer at the moment?
Yeah, I do, because I know it will be so much better for me. That's, so psychologically, I feel that I have done exactly what I wanted to do. I needed to kind of get this off of my chest, out of my head, out of my being, to just go, right, now it's said. Because it was all so consuming, especially over the last few months, that it was just like, I need to do it. The documentary allowed me to do it in a way that I felt was most responsible and respectful to the conversations that I was talking about, and also for me to not be somebody that just goes, oh, I'm out, I'm gay, I'm going to fly flags or whatever, because that's just not me anyway. And so, yeah, the documentary, I always say there's one opportunity in life sometimes. So someone you meet or something, someone says. But for me, it was the ITV sort of saying, we will back you to do this documentary. That for me was almost like a lifeline, because I had to do it in a way that expressed who I was as somebody in the public eye, and somebody that's been sort of put on this pedestal through being an Olympic champion and a dame and an honorary colonel. But actually, they needed to know more of me, for me to say, well, no, this is actually who the true me is, and the true person that you've been celebrating for all these years. And I felt I could only do it by doing it in a public way, but through a thought-provoking sort of doc. So I've done it.
You've done it. And you could see in the documentary there's parts where you were so uncomfortable, or you could see the stress in your face and how you were delivering it. But that sort of went as you were chatting to those beautiful people, the ex-service men and women, and the couple who are Olympic boxers. Like, you could see the weight going incrementally, which was so amazing. I mean, it's a terrifying prospect to delve into subjects that are shit scary.
It really is. And I'd never spoken to anyone. This is what people may not have understood before I did the doc, was that I never, ever was able to ask a question, talk to somebody about being in the LGBT plus community, being gay. Like, I never even had a close conversation because I was scared of their thing, oh, she must be gay. And I remember thinking to myself, I know, I'm old enough to know that people will always have assumption in life. And it's something that I said at, I got invited to the LGBT plus awards, which again, I'd never been to anything to do with the community ever. And I remember standing there thinking, I know people will go, well, we thought anyway. But for me, and I put it as a quote, is assumption isn't freedom. Freedom is my voice. And that's why I had to give my voice to free myself, regardless of what other people thought. So all of the conversations I had with the different types of groups I needed to address my problems through, it was the first time I'd had those honest conversations. So, a documentary can only show so much, can't it? It's cut down a lot. So behind that, I had huge conversations, and really sort of in-depth things that I just like, wow, I was blown away by some of the conversations I had, So the perspective of that being that if I'm talking to people in the army that live their life or authentically open now, that in my head is inconceivable.
Yeah.
To think that they're just living their life and no one cares anymore.
I mean, that was a beautiful moment of the documentary, because the people you were talking to in the army now, who, as you say, are openly gay and trans, they didn't even realise that it was illegal. Only 22 years ago, it was illegal to be gay in the army, and they were like, didn't even know. It hadn't crossed their minds, because there has been so much progress. There's always still progress to be done, but there's been so much progress. So it's understandable, because you lived in such a different era, and having that omnipresent fear when you were serving, I can't even imagine the mental, emotional and physical stress that brings on. And I guess that's going to take a long time for you to process, and like you say, make peace with a very complex relationship you have with the army, which you love it, but also there's been so many dark, problematic areas that you've had to live through.
Yeah, you're right. So this has been the roller coaster, because I loved my career when I served. I'd loved being a physical training instructor. I wanted to be in the army since I was 14. So that love and need to have a career, which was then the army, because I was an academic at school. So me going into the army felt like I could become someone. I could go through the rank structure. I could have that recognition and that sort of presence that, people seeing me being good, it made me achieve something. Then having the fear that was instilled into me as a child, really, back then, 17-year-old, I was a young 17-year-old,
Yeah, you're a kid.
Yeah, and especially back then when, kids were kids.
Totally.
You got read this kind of script about you couldn't have same-sex relationships, but at that time when it's read, I didn't even actually know that I was a gay woman. So when it was very obvious to me that maybe I liked a female, this girl that I just got to know as part of our intake, she kissed me and I just thought, oh. And it didn't feel wrong. It was just like, oh, yeah. Okay, all right. And then the ironic thing is I joined the Women's Royal Army Corps. So before 1992, females joined what was called the Women's Royal Army Corps. So it was a separate to the men's. So in terms of our rank structure, our promotional structure, and everybody that looked after you was all females. And it was in 1992 that we amalgamated to become one British Army as you know it today. So men and women serving side by side in everything. And the ironic thing is that there were a lot of gay women. There was a lot, but it was just an unspoken piece of your journey, even throughout the whole ranks. There was women, but you just didn't speak about it. It's like anything. If you know something about someone, you just know. I don't know. It's like a language unspoken. But then, but because of that fear was instilled in me. But I think the fear started to become something very apparent to me when I became an international athlete, because during my army career, I used to use my leave to go away and compete. So I would then go away and compete as a civilian athlete running for Great Britain, with world-class Olympians in my team, like Olympia Christie and Sally Gunner and all the old hats and, Colin Jackson.
Legend. This is my era of the Olympics.
Exactly.
This is when I was like screaming at the TV. It brings me fond memories.
So I'd be in that team, and it was a really kind of complex position, because I was trying to be Kelly Holmes the athlete, but I was the soldier. So as soon as I'd finished championship, I'd go back in as a soldier and do my job and wear my uniform. And so when I left in 1997, aged 27, the ban was still there for the army. So I'm now a world-class international athlete. I'd multi-medalled already. I'm now a civilian. yet there's still a ban within the army up to 2000. So in my head, it's like, well, there's no way I can say anything because I'm admitting literally that I've broken the law while the law is still in place.
God, the pressure.
So I just thought, well, I can't say anything. So I didn't. So then I won a medal in my next Olympics in 2000. The ban only got lifted, I think, in the January of 2000. In my head, I was convinced if I said something, there will be some retaliation, retribution, something would come off of me admitting it. And it just went on and on. And then, of course, in that next 4-year period, I multi-medalled at many championships. 4 years later, I become double Olympic champion. And that's when the pressure was really on.
Yeah. God, I mean, the irony is crazy that, the more successful you got, the more scared you became because the pressure and the all eyes on you were just there constantly. And, I mean, let's go back to so I know there's obviously... There's fear within the sporting community at that point because you're doing so brilliantly. But also, you said in the documentary, that wasn't a commonplace conversation that you would have with fellow athletes. So you had that going on. But you've still got, as you said, this ban where, you spoke to these brilliant, beautiful souls on your show who were, the guy was imprisoned for being gay, which just seems to be, in this day and age, you just go, how is that even possible? This is within our lifetimes that's the case. He's imprisoned, stripped of medals, the whole thing. It's a very serious situation to find yourself in. How did that fear affect you psychologically? Because I'm sure it spilled out into all areas of life, carrying that burden.
Yeah, absolutely. You end up not trusting people. You're worried about what people are going to do, say, who's going to trip you up. Going back to what you said about the two that I had in the documentary, remember, there was around 300 each year who were that were being kicked out the forces. These are people that had served for their country, maybe fought on the front line, got long service medals. You only get a long service medal after 15 years. So these were people that were able to be there and serve for their country, and no one batted an eyelid. Great soldiers, until somebody finds out about their personal life. And at that moment, they're no good as a soldier. How does that work? It just doesn't seem that this is... I just don't see how whoever it was that set those rules can see that there was any sense at all that was something that should have been in place. Emma that was in there. I mean, the thing is, as I say, you don't get so much in the doc because it has to be about my story, yet I'm trying to explore. Emma was a young girl, she was 21. She was celibate. She just said to her friend, she thinks she might be gay. Yeah. Like those words. Yeah. And that so-called friend went to senior officers and she got arrested. And then she's out the army and then humiliated. And the thing for me, when I got raided, so I spoke in the doc about getting raided. I was 23 at the time. I was a corporal at the time. I was one of the best PTIs that given. I was promoted quicker than all the people that I'd been with in the past. So I did my job really, really well. And I was also, Army champion, inter-services champion, judo champion, everything, and yet whoever it was had obviously got tip-off that there might be some people that were gay in our unit. And basically, we got tipped off that the RMPs were coming. This is what happens. You get tipped off that Royal Military Police are going to come. So at that time, I wasn't actually seeing anyone, which is, again, weird. But anything that has anything about you saying... An example, my best friend who is in the documentary, Kerry, I've known her since day one at school, and my Lisa who's in the documentary, they used to write me letters because we didn't have mobile phones to say hi. It was always pay phone. was just like, oh no, I can't bothered. You know what I mean? So they'd write you letters like, are you around? Are you alive? When are you coming home? But even if it said love Kerry, love Lisa, those letters, they were going in that box. Anything of any friends, your mates, arms round, in the box, in the boot of the car. because you would just thought nothing you'd be there. So they'd come in and they'd literally get you out, you'd stand by your door, and they would tip and rip everything apart in everyone's room. Even if people were straight in a heterosexual relationship, they would just come and rip your rooms apart, tip everything out, stand all over it, and then basically leave with either something that they think is evidence or nothing at all, and just leave you there. It's humiliating, it's scary, it's embarrassing.
It's
you
awful.
know,
and like Emma
that,
said,
yeah.
that then that forced her to come out to her family, because she had to give a reason that she'd been kicked out the army.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. Like that is not, it's just not okay.
It's not
I don't have
okay.
any words. I can't form a proper sentence because I'm just, you can't process it. It doesn't make sense. And it was such a short time ago, which is even more important that you're having this conversation in the context of the army, because, you know, as much progress as we've seen, let's look at the army in particular. You know, there's been a lot of progress in a short time. But of course, there are still, I don't know how many states and countries around the world, it's in the tens, where it's still illegal to be homosexual. You know, this is still a huge global problem, with en masse numbers of people being arrested, put in prison for their personal being. I mean, it's madness.
They're being vilified for just sort of who you are. And the thing is, you can't help who you are. You just are who you are. You know, doesn't matter what label or where you want to sit. You are the person that's walking around, and you happen to then have your feelings or emotions mostly around your comfort, how comfortable you are with a person, whatever that means to you.
And it's actually no one's business.
That, no.
Like, it's no one's business. Like, you've done this because it's healing for you, massively cathartic. You need to make peace with the army. And you know, because of this massive platform you've got, you're going to help. I mean, you've already helped so many people. It's like when we had Philip Schofield on the podcast. You can't quantify or understand it because it will have touched people in so many ways personally. But at the end of the day, it's no one's fucking business. No. It's no one's business about anyone's sexuality or just who they are. Yeah. And it's a shame that this is still the case, that you're having to make the documentary, that you're having to do this as much as you want to and you have that drive. It's saddening that we're still focusing on this in a way. It's a huge shame.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go. And, you know, the reason I had to do the doc is because of the fear. Because it was that, how do I get rid of this, something that's been in my head for like 34 years. How do I get rid of the fear? Because I've lived my life authentically myself in my private life, and I've done all the things I've done since winning 2 gold medals, and, you know, everyone sees me at events and I'm still there. I do everything, but that does not help me because my mental health has been affected through it. I go home, I'm the one that cries. I go home, I'm the one that's, you know, in a shell. This is the thing. And the army was the catalyst for it. Then it went from that being, God, I'm well known now. No one spoke about it in sport. You know, back then, I didn't know anybody. You know, I wasn't really into tennis, so I didn't know Billie Jean King and Navratilova. So apart from those 2 females who are obviously, you know, world class, iconic and leaders in the conversation, I was unaware. No one in athletics at all talked about it, so I just became an athlete. You know, I'm just an athlete. I don't care what I look like. Who I am, as in didn't wear makeup, didn't do whatever. I'm just there to win medals, and that's it. And struggled with all my injury problems that didn't help with mental health at all. But so I had the 2 sides of me, you know, and you've got to remember I'm not 20. You know, I'm also a generational person that's gone through generational change in this community. The 80s with the AIDS epidemic was very much there. So the LGBT, as it was called then, community was very sort of hidden and vilified. You know, there was
shame
so
and horrible
much
stuff
went
thrown
on.
in it.
So I have the curve of lots of things in my head and life. Then I get to wow, you asked me a question because I can go on chatting.
No, this is the whole point. You just keep chatting. My questions are completely irrelevant.
Well, then I get to the purpose, again, for doing the doc was that over the past 4 years, I felt I had to do something to help myself. I was getting everything about me was getting wrong. You know, I was constantly in tears. I was constantly second guessing myself what I was going to do next. You know, I didn't want to go back into my whole cycle of mental health problems, yet I was in it and I didn't recognise it probably. I was just, you know, lost. I was insecure. I felt that I wasn't being myself when I'm out with people, you know, even if I was out with you or whatever. You know, when I did a podcast before, I talked absolutely about how sport affected my mental health. I never said one thing to you about my personal problems, right? Anything.
You interestingly did a video for our festival, which was the digital one in 2020. And, you know, at the time I watched it and just thought, this is beautiful. But I rewatched it this week. And you were sort of talking about all this without saying it. Because you'd had this moment where you'd shaved your hair and you'd wanted to do it for years, and you thought, I actually don't care what people think anymore. This is who I am. You started to dress how you wanted to dress. And you watching it back, I was like, oh wow, like you can see the shit flying off, like the layers coming off, like already then. And I watched it with a completely different mindset. And you seemed really confident talking about it then. You just hadn't said it.
Anything,
and I guess, you know, as well as having that extreme and, you know, just unwarranted fear that you had to deal with in the context of the army, I guess there is, for anybody wanting to, regardless, you know, just let's put sexuality to one side, just whoever you want to be. There are so many people that don't feel they can live authentically and be themselves because we've all got this inbuilt thing as humans that we just want to belong. We just want to belong. We want to be accepted. We want to feel part of something. And I think so many of our individual fears come from that place. I just want to belong. And of course, you know, that's the case for all of us, but I'm sure that was a fear that you held. And then obviously you tell everybody who you are and everyone goes, amazing, come here, brilliant. And the only, you know, if there are people that discriminate or that don't understand it, they're the ones that are the most scared of not belonging. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that fear as a whole is debilitating for anybody. It doesn't matter what that fear consists of. And as you say, you know, fear, we all maybe have an element of fear somewhere embedded in us. Just some are able to it not affect their life because it's just one very small part. It's not their whole being. So getting out of situations and relationships, something to do with your family and religion, and you need to escape. You know, there's so many things that are inside all of us that some people need to scream and shout and just aren't able to. And if there's one thing when it comes to this community, the fear is maybe so much wider because of that perceived lack of acceptance in the community or in the world as we stand. So when people go, oh, no one should be able to come out anymore, that's because either they're a younger generation that haven't really felt the fear. They're living that life where it's a brilliant world to be in. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I used to be jealous. You know, last year when I'm doing a lot of the research to do some of the doc, because I've been doing it over process, you know, I'm looking at Instagram of all people. I'm following people, but I don't say anything because I think, oh, God, they might say, oh, you know, follow me. And I'm thinking, I'm jealous of the way that you're living your life. But equally, I think this is amazing. You know, so the thing is, it's really difficult. It was really difficult for me to try and explain some things when people go, oh, yeah, but no one cares anymore. But I care. Yeah. You know, no one cares because society is changing and we're in a better world where people here will go, it shouldn't be spoken about. That's awesome. That is so lovely to hear, and we want that to be the case. But unfortunately, for lots of reasons, a lot of people in their lives have to care or do care because it isn't so easy for them to make that next step. Yeah. For so many other reasons. Yeah. And you can peel off lots of onion layers of people to go, this is why they can't yet do it. And the one thing I have learnt through this process with the community is no one's right to tell somebody else about them or to out that person at all, because you don't know why they're not coming out, because there's so many other things behind why they can't come out. It is never acceptable to out somebody.
Never.
That's the first thing. Everybody, like myself, would love to just live this free life and be whatever. And I hope one day we don't have these conversations again. I really hope that this becomes what the lifestyle people are living now becomes normal.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that blew me away in the documentary was the two boxers who...
I love them.
You know, so I had a parallel life with one of them. You know, there's both in the army, both Olympians. There we go, both gay. I'm in the army, scared shitless, can't say anything, in there against the law. International athlete for many, many years, win medals, can't say anything, can't say I'm gay, can't live my life authentically. Somebody else in the army, openly gay, international athlete, wins medals at Olympics with her partner, you know, openly with her partner, living her life.
They couldn't believe your feelings, could they? They sort of looked in disbelief. Yeah. They were like, I don't get it, what? But as you say, it's a generational thing. It's a life experience thing. It's what you've lived through. It's, you know, the career that you've had, whatever it might be. It's going to be different for everyone. I think it's so important that you've just said that about it's never okay to out it or even to question it. You know, you've been able to take complete control in your narrative by making this documentary in your time and explaining it in a way that feels right to you, that deals with the problems that you've had to face and the barriers and the fear, and to face up to them, to not hide from them, to really get stuck into them. And it's so important that it's you're in control. It's your story. It's so important.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think the other barrier I had was because I was in the public eye. You know, that's the other thing I had all these sort of, every time there seemed a little barrier to me. And actually the past 4 years it's been really strange. So I became an honorary colonel with the Royal Armoured Corps Training Regiment, still hadn't said that I was gay, wanted to take the post because I thought, wow, an honour, you know, God, I'm going to be captain.
Yeah,
no one saluted me when I was in the army. It's been brilliant. Like, yes, ma'am.
Was I meant to salute you at the door? I didn't do that.
Yes, of course.
Oh, shit. Come on.
Hello.
There we go.
You know, so you have these things. So that for me was again a perceived barrier. So when my mum passed away, it felt like I had to change. So I did the undercut under my hair the day of her funeral because I just thought, I can't, like, I need to do something for me. Like, it was literally that one thing, like, right off.
And she wanted you to be free and live your life and be...
Absolutely. Yeah. But I just never could. A day of her funeral, like, well, I mean, I said it in the I lost the plot and still had, but when she passed away, and then I had the funeral, and then in my head it's like, I have to change, something's got to change for me, you know, but then I'm getting this role with the Royal Armoured Corps Regiment. So I had these two things but fighting again, you know, and every time it was almost like, I can't do it now, but I want to do it now. So this has been the turmoil that I've had inside that no one's seen, because I've got one side literally fighting just to be free, and the other side saying, protecting, because I've always protected. When you're protecting something, you learn how to hide. You learn when not to speak. You learn how to not say something. And that goes for anyone. I think when you get to a point in your life, you control yourself. You know, you really control your emotions in public, and that could be with friends and family, or in the wider public, as it would be me. And at home, you're the one that suffers. You know, and that's what people forget.
You've got to unlearn all that now and be like, I don't have to keep my mouth shut, or got to unlearn the whole lot of it.
I know.
It's a lot to unlearn.
It's really different. You know, people keep saying, oh, how does it feel now? And I'm like, well, I don't really know, because I don't know how I'm going to be. I'm trying to be freer, you know. I suppose it has changed in the past. I'd say when I was doing the doc, since one of the changes publicly for me, so this has been the battle, is the public me. Private me, as I say, I am who I am, you know, I'm Kelly, the biggest kid, even though I'm the eldest. Not really the eldest, but I'm the biggest kid. In public, I never felt I could be me. So I needed to start to make those changes. So one of the things I did, I'd been friends with Kelly Hopping for years. This is funny, actually, because she said to me, do you remember a few years ago, I said to you, I know you're gay. And then in my head, I went,
Oh, God.
She went, and I saw your face, and I just had to go, and I felt, oh my God, I felt really bad about it. She said it to me,
Wow.
just privately in my head, and I just like froze and just retreated, you know what I mean? And then we never spoke another word about it. Anyway, she got her CBE, and I got invited to her party, and I just thought, I just need to say, because there was her, there was Alan Carr, there was a Boy George, right?
Love.
And this is not to name drop, but this is to
I
put
wish I was
this...
at that party.
It was a good party. But it was lots of other people, but this is to kind of explain it. So I went there and I thought, do you know what? I just need to say to you. And she just went, it's okay, it's brilliant, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, it's just like trying to do these stages.
Yeah.
Then I saw Boy George, and before, I've always admired him, and I saw him at another event, and I don't go up to him because I was always thought that he's sort of like and I don't know, it's my perception, but a bit sort of, he doesn't like Fano type thing. And I thought, I don't want to be like a Fano.
I bet he
know
loves
what I mean?
it.
No, but I don't want to be a Fano. So I just went up to him and went, hi, George.
You're a Dame.
I'm
what are
Dame
you
Kelly.
worrying about?
I went, I'm Dame Kelly. And he went, I know.
Of course he knows.
I said, this might be a really weird thing, but I just need to tell you about myself. I just want to say to you, I'm a gay woman, but I'm not out. And you're only the second person I'm saying this to. You know what I mean? Like, as in the thing. And he was so lovely. Like, it was almost like he embraced me because I opened to him. I wasn't this kind of, hi, George, and whatever, very sort of false conversation.
Yeah, he met you.
And then the same with Alan. And it just felt freedom for me because I felt safe. I felt that they would never say anything, but it was my first step of expressing who I was in a public environment. People might not understand that, but for me, that was life-changing, that moment, because it just made me feel, oh, God, I can be me outside of my home, you know? I can just actually be me. So that changed everything, and it was part of the process of getting Alan in my doc, because then I went to a couple of things with him, and I just had a better in-depth conversation with him, and it freed me. These little conversations with these people freed that being, and so... It's very strange, we all go to different parts of our life, and we can all look back and have different things where we have changed as people for different reasons. But for me, these reasons were life-changing, just these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, again, in the documentary, you mentioned the depths that you were at in 2020, where you were feeling utterly depressed. You had been sort of pulled in the direction of potentially self-harming again, which was obviously a huge warning sign for you that you needed to do something, or you needed help. Yeah. You started therapy a bit after that point, which we saw in the documentary, and that seemed very sort of important component in this whole process. But you can see all those little moments add up to getting you from that place of despair to being more free, to being liberated, to be happy, which is, the goal is to feel okay, living your life.
The goal is to feel happy. You know, I said on the, I think this morning, I said, I don't feel like I've ever truly been happy. And that's an honest statement where people go, well, surely you must be happy. No, I've had great times and great moments, and the best moments are winning gold medals. Yeah, I'm never going to forget that. That's a dream come true. But that's different than feeling as an individual happy in yourself and happy with who you are.
That's more of a grounded thing. Like those big moments are like excitement, jubilation, but this is a grounding, isn't it? I guess that happiness.
Yeah, and I did need to change that. Pandemic was really difficult for so many people for so many reasons. I think a lot of people either went in themselves, found themselves, realised who they didn't want to be, who they did want to be, changed jobs, changed experiences. For me, it went through, I'm there, I'm keeping myself busy, I've got my fitness program going, that military emotion thing. I kind of built that as an online community. They've become friends. I kept going. I was doing all my motivational talking on Zoom, and then suddenly I was like, I can't do it. I'm like trying to give so much of myself, but I felt like I can't. I have nothing else to say to you. I've said everything that's motivational, inspirational, and doing whatever. I can't do anymore.
I've run dry of motivation. It's gone.
Literally. And then I remember feeling so bad. I had this speaking engagement, And I'd had a really bad night. I'd been in tears. Was losing it, like literally. And I did this speaking engagement. I said to him, I need to tell you I'm not feeling good, because it was meant to be a well-being talk. And I said, I am not in a good place right now. I'm going to do my talk to you, but I'm going to be honest. And I said, I'm not good. And after that, I put down my laptop, and I literally had a burnout, like a breakdown burnout. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I decided I was going to take 3 weeks off of work. I actually took 10 months off of work. I lost it. And during that time, I went to see Tanya, who's in my doc, psychologist, because I'd never... People talk about psychologists, like, when do you go and see a psychologist? When's the right time? I think there's always time to go and speak to someone, without a doubt. Whether that's a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a doctor or a friend or family, talking, we know, can really help you. I know I needed to see somebody professional, but throughout my whole life, I was always scared of seeing a psychologist because they might out me. Like, this is how bad that whole thing was in my head. So I finally plucked up the courage to see this Tanya, and she did what was called like a brainwave therapy thing. And they basically, you put these electrode sort of things on your head. It shows your delta beta waves, so it's about how your brain functions.
Oh my God, I want to do that.
I know, it's really good, really, really good. And we didn't, again, it's too in-depth to go through in the doc, but basically when she did this brainwave therapy, she said your brain in certain areas is basically flatlined. Wow. I had no emotion, I had no creativity, I had no thought process. I was literally numb when I went to see her, like numb. And she said, you need help. And I remember the first treatment she did me, I fell asleep. She said, your brain is so trying to work. She said, I can't even get it to engage. I was gone. And this was through the build-up of everything. I'd had COVID really bad. You know, I'd had operations on my legs. I was just getting down and further down during lockdown. You know, I was just like further, like thinking, I felt like I needed to explode. I needed to just try and how do I just be me and scream, you know, but I couldn't. So all of this has been that process to it. And then the December of that year, I had a really bad breakdown. I just lost the plot. And this is the night you described, of me being in bed and just thinking, I'm scared of what I'm going to do. Like, this is the fear I had, because I'd been a self-harmer. I'd stopped self-harming when my mum passed away, because I realised she didn't have another day to live, and I should be able to live the rest of my life. And that was, again, a turning point mentally. But this night I was petrified, like literally. I'm going to cry now. No, I've done enough crying in my doc.
I know, but you can always cry. There's always more to come out.
But yeah, and I feel for people who have real mental health issues, because some people don't understand that either. You know, you are out of control. When your brain is so fired up that you're screaming inside, you're out of control. Yeah. At that moment, I had to try and control myself, which also shows, I suppose, strength that we have as human beings to really focus on what we don't want to do, where it's easy to go down the route of doing something to release. I could have easily gone downstairs, got a knife and started self-harming again that night. The strength that I felt I had, again, a changing point was, don't do it. Even though it was crippling me, I was literally like I needed somebody to like pin me down, handcuff me or something, because I could feel myself doing it in my head to hold me down. But I knew that moment I just had to change, you know, and that's when I then did the whole get in touch with people. I got in touch with a therapist to start with. Didn't work for me at all. And this is one other thing I would pass on.
You've got to find the right person.
Find the right person.
Have to.
Don't think one person is always right, and if that person doesn't work, that you're never going to do it again. I just knew that person wasn't right for lots of reasons, and then luckily found Tanya, went to see her. We got on so well. We had a great rapport. She made me feel at ease. She didn't question me. She just said, you need help. I did. She said, I'm going to help you. She did. And that process was part of the journey that I went on to then be able to do the doc, you know, to then get out to be here now. So it's been a tough one, but you know, I must go back into just very much, I know I've said all the deep stuff, but I do want to put the positives back in the army, because I think it's important that I do say those changes have made a world of difference for so many people to live their life. So. And socially, people being accepted now in this world is making a difference to so many people's lives.
Yeah.
Seeing the freedom out there, you can only change by, I think in the freedom way, you can only really change by having visibility and having other people being at the forefront. So I've seen that now. I've started to kind of dip my very little toe into what this LGBT plus world is, and I'm still have no idea. I'm learning so much, and I've probably cocked up so many times in saying things because I don't know how to say things all the time.
I don't think you can cock up. It's
but,
your, it's your experience. It's your story.
Yeah. But I'm dipping my toe in there. But then in the army, I'm proud of the changes they've made, because finally people can do a career, be good at it, and be themselves. And then putting all of the things together, I suppose, is I also part of doing this. I hope that one day I can become an authoritative and trusted voice in both the community, representing whatever I feel is the appropriate way to do things, because I do feel the landscape is very confusing possibly for people, and that's why there's still the stigmatism and still the fight back sometimes. Because if I didn't understand it, being a gay woman, I understand that a lot of people in society won't yet understand it, but that's education and being informed. So I hope my doc gave a little bit of that, but there's lots more to do, and maybe I can help be a voice to express the need for some of the conversation to go wider so people generally get it. And then in the army, there's still a lot of work to be done with those that were affected by the ban. It's still a huge amount of work to ensure that all those hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, military soldiers, so that's Army, Navy and Air Force, get some recognition for the treatment that was given to them, because there are a lot still suffering.
Yeah.
So
they got their medals back, but it's the psychological...
Some haven't still.
Really?
Some haven't. They had to apply.
It's only... that's ridiculous. It's a gesture, but I think
Yeah.
the psychological damage, which you cannot quantify again or tangibly see, experience, how do you heal from that? I don't even know. It's years and years of trauma and building up narratives that should not exist. But you know what you've just wished you could be, you're already doing. You're already doing it, and you've already done a shitload to help so many people out there in two worlds that historically haven't been seen to be inclusive, the sports world and the army, and we're seeing brilliant progress as your documentary demonstrated. But that's a lot of work for you to get stuck into. I'm sure you're sort of daunted but also excited by it. Do you feel a bit like you're sort of starting again to some extent? Does this feel like chapter 2 of your life?
About chapter 5 at this point, I think. I'm ready, chapter 5. I'm on. But I do feel like it give almost like a clean slate for what I want to express, who I need to be, just being myself.
Yeah.
Just I don't know what's there in the future. This is a thing. So, and I really can't plan ahead for it, because this has been a big deal to get to the point. Now it's sort of out there, and it's like, well, now what, And I know that there's going to be, over time, new things that start to come and a pathway for me to go. I'm actually going to my first ever Pride. The 2nd of July.
You're going to love it.
I've never done that before.
It's wild.
So I'm going to that and doing something I'm not allowed to say, but I'm doing something there, Pride. And, there's lots of things I know that are possibly in the pipeline, but I think at the moment it also is for me to compute everything that's happened. It's for me to process it all, for me to start to strip back some of the fear and the inhibitions I've had and the worries I've had. And when I go to certain places, remember, I don't have to talk that language anymore. There's language that I used to talk to not expose myself. Mm-hmm. There's situations that are in where somebody else will open the door because I don't want to be seen, because if I'm being seen, they might go, oh, what? So I need to step by step unravel 34 years of what's been inside me.
Yeah.
So I will do that, but hopefully also eventually be, I don't know, I'm not there to take over. There's many people before me who have been the leaders, the flag bearers, the kind of absolute, as the Brigadier and the things, are giants of this world, have gone before me. I'm not there to then go, oh, I'm better than any of you in terms of my voice. But I do know that the position I have and the opportunity I have, that I can be a great voice for change. Yeah. And that's one thing that I absolutely would like to be, a great voice in both sectors, but definitely within the community at some stage when I learn more, because I've got a lot to learn, when I'm educated more, because maybe I'm not educated enough on some of the subjects that are an issue at the moment. But when I am, then I hope that I can help be a voice that then normalises it. You know, if they see Dame Kelly Holmes, honorary colonel, who's gay, oh, well, we used to cheer her when she went in the track. Oh my God, look what she's done. Well, we don't care about her sexuality. When we have that, then that should be great. So I'm hoping that goes to everybody. Oh, what's the matter now then?
Completely.
That's what I hope.
Have you noticed a lack of physical tension? Because like you've talked about, especially during the pandemic, you had sort of health things going on. And I'm imagining, like we've all experienced on varying degrees, whether it's stress, trauma, whatever it might be, it's not just an emotional issue. It's not just learned behaviour. It's physically stored and held. And I can certainly look back at when I have been in depression or even having panic attacks, how much it takes a toll physically, and ailments will flare up, or I'll get into a cycle of, oh, this thing is happening again. Why is this happening again? Yeah. And it's all linked to the emotions. And then sometimes you figure things out and it just sort of goes, and it takes the edge off of if it's pain or whatever it might be. Have you felt any physical changes in that way?
I don't know what I've so weird. I do to some degree. I think there has been that sort of lift at different stages. So the lift of speaking to the army was a huge one. Yeah. That one conversation that I had in December 2020 when I spoke to the Brigadier and I just said, if I do a documentary, say anything, is there? And she went, no, you'll be fine. Like, honestly, I couldn't believe it. It's like I felt at that time I was a little floating, but then I didn't know what to do with it. You know, it's like, one conversation.
Yeah, gone.
You know?
Yeah.
But you say some really great things. Is when you are struggling as a person, it affects every part of you. Yeah. Your physical being, your mental being, your health, everything. That's what I had. I was getting so run down. I'd have cold sores all over my face. My hair looked gross. My skin was awful. I was more inactive than I normally am, and yet activity is something to make you feel good, right? But I was going back in a cycle. I was drawn. I was so tired, and coupled with me having really bad on COVID and having 2 operations at the same time, having burnout and then having depression, that wasn't great. No. Both physically and mentally, it was not good. No. And I don't need to go into that too much at this stage, but it wasn't pretty. No. So, but each of these things that I've explained during this is helping me to release the tension, to release those feelings. And just having a conversation with you, that, it is fulfilling to have conversation. Just to blurt it out to someone is empowering.
It's the best.
So it really is. So, each stage is so important. Yeah. And we'll still keep doing more. And, I'm hoping that, thank you for the opportunity, honestly.
Oh, no, please don't
because
thank me.
It allows me to say more in depth than maybe what has come out, which is lovely. And also, if it helps anyone, then brilliant.
No, it will. And you're so right. I think, it's very much why I do what I do. I love having conversations with people about things that matter, things that might prompt change, things that are just cathartic, therapeutic, whether that's for the person I'm talking to, most of the time, also for me as well. I think when it comes to a big issue, and it doesn't have to be sexuality, I've certainly been at this crossroads where you want to talk, but you're unsure how you should go about it. You do have to talk to the right person first, because I picked the wrong person back in the day to say something to, and I went further down. So you've got to get the right person, and it's got to be the right time. And that isn't something that can be prescribed. Like you'll feel it when it's like, I cannot hold this in any longer. I have to speak, but it's on your clock. No one else gets to decide that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's up to other people to know what's right. What I do hope, though, is when people see other people talking, their knowing it's right will come quicker for them.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be so much better.
It really is. God, that's a beautiful thing to say. And I can't thank you enough. It's been so good to do this chat, and I've been so looking forward to it. And I'm just so bloody thrilled for you. I really am. And I loved watching your documentary. It was just so important and beautifully executed. So thank you so much, Kelly. It's been great seeing you.
I love you lots.
I love you.
Thank you.